What's going on, everyone? I hope you are all well. Welcome back to some more r/Entitled Parents. Entitled parent tried to sneak her kid on a ride and then tries to get me fired. I work at an indoor amusement park. I won't say the name of the place for privacy. But yesterday I had one of the worst days of my working career. It all started normal enough. My friend runs the ride go-karts, and the first half of the story is from what she told me during our break. This big group of family and friends walk into the place and instantly start problems. One of the kids is crying and another is throwing tantrums. But since this place is kid-friendly, we're all so used to hearing random children cry and scream, it's basically background noise for us. But the entitled parent walks up to my co-worker and demands her entire group of people get on the ride at the same time. For go-karts, it's a sort of long process because in order for you to ride, you have to sign a waiver for each person riding in case there is any injuries and the person can't sue. My co-worker tells the entitled parent that and she huffs and makes a big deal about it. But finally, she takes her demon swarm of children and their parents to do the waivers. They return and they try to get on, but they have to pay for each person. Keep in mind this is around 10 or so people trying to ride the track. Go-karts can fit up to 20 people because we have a decent sized racetrack. We try to fit as many people on at one time instead of breaking them into smaller groups, which is a much bigger hassle for us. After the adults pay and we show the waivers, the co-worker moves on to the kids. We're instructed to do the adults first. Now, the kids have to be at least a minimum of 45 inches to ride by themselves. If they're under that, they have to ride with an adult. Because of that, we have a limited number of carts that can take 2 people. My co-worker begins to measure the kids to see who's tall enough to ride by themselves with someone or not at all. The entitled parent begins yelling at my co-worker to hurry up. CW had finished measuring the kids and then begins to sort them out and put them in lines for single or double riders. Finally, it comes down to the entitled parent's son, entitled kid. My co-worker tells the entitled parent that if she wants her entitled kid to ride, she'll need to ride with him. The entitled parent causes a big fuss about how she wants to ride by herself and can't EK ride by himself? Wait, so the entitled parent doesn't even want to get in the same go-kart as their kid? That is strange. My co-worker tells her it's a safety issue and she can't allow the entitled kid to ride by himself. But of course, the entitled parent holds up the line yelling she's the customer. Finally, my co-worker calls our manager to solve the problem. The manager comes to find me and asks me to drive a double go-kart for a guest. I agree because it's a chance to drive a go-kart for free. I guess that's one of the perks at working at a go-kart place. The manager walked over with me and the entitled parent takes one look at me, and when she finds out it's me, she turns to the manager and not so quietly whispers if she can have someone else. The manager asks why I'm not suitable and the entitled parent whispers, "I don't want a freaking hood rat near my son." I'm black and the entitled parent is very, very white. But the manager tells her I'm the only option after sharing a look with me. The manager tells the entitled parent that if she doesn't want to ride with EK, she's happy to give her a refund on her ticket, but her entitled kid cannot ride by himself. This is when the entitled kid begins screaming that he wants to ride and EP begins arguing with my manager about how she's going to sue for discrimination. Finally, the group the entitled parent is with complains to her so that she stops complaining. She tells the entitled kid to wait for her. I am shocked. EP would rather have fun for herself than let her kid be happy. But there's nothing we can do, it's her choice. My manager gives her a refund on his ticket and EP asks for a refund on hers as well. My manager glares at her and walks away. Cue me and my co-worker quietly laughing. The entitled parent huffs and gets into a go-kart. While the entitled kid is waiting for her mum, I felt bad and went with him to play a few games in which he got a stuffed animal. When the entitled parent got off the ride, she asked EK where he was. The kid first explained where me and him had been. I was first thinking, oh snap, how did such a nice kid end up with an EP? But boy was I wrong. The entitled parent asked the entitled kid loudly if I had touched him anywhere inappropriate. My mouth hung open wide as the entitled kid said yes. Before he even finished talking, the entitled parent started screaming and calling me a rapist and a pedophile. My manager and security come running over and ask what's wrong. The entitled parent begins screaming that I touched her son inappropriately and that she's calling the cops and all that type of stuff. Security looks down at the entitled kid and asks where I touched him. The entitled kid said I gave him a frickin' pat on the back when he won the stuffed animal. Security and my manager look at EP like, what the F? But she just keeps on screaming that no matter where I touched her entitled kid, I had no right and that I should be fired on the spot. My manager says she's not going to fire me, but turns to be where the entitled parent can't see her face and rolls her eyes. Don't ever do that again or you'll be fired, lol. I play along with her game and say I'm sorry and please don't fire me. The EP nods her head and then has the frickin' nerve to say, "That's right, know your place." I walk away fuming and not trusting myself to not slap a lady. A few hours later, I'm still irritated but not mad, when guess who shows up? I'm running laser tag at this point. Now, we have a big play area, it can fit up to 48 people. There is a party scheduled for the area at the time, and parties get to go in by themselves at their designated time. The entitled parent immediately starts complaining about how come they get to go in and stuff. I calmly explain to her why, and that makes her angrier. That is just so typical of an entitled parent. You give them a little bit of logic and it just makes them madder. What follows is basically how the conversation went. How come they can go first and by themselves? Because they're a party and reserve the arena for one game. Well, I'm a party too, so we should get to go in. It's my birthday today. I checked later and it wasn't. Why is this entitled parent literally coming across as a 6-year-old kid? Even if it was, Mom, you still would have needed to reserve and plan your party here to reserve a game. I know there's enough space, just let us go in with them. Mom, that is not my call. Honestly, it's all down to the other party. I nod towards the other party getting ready to go in. The birthday boy is about 14. He says it's okay for them to join the game, because in laser tag it's much more fun with more people. The entitled parent smirks at me and walks on in. In laser tag, there is a referee, which is me. I just read the rules, make sure everyone is strapped correctly for the game, and enforce the rules. I can do this by penalising a player for not following a rule. Penalising a player means I turn off their vest for 30 seconds, which means they can't shoot and is basically a walking target, and deduct points. Once I start reading the rules, the entitled parent says loudly to her friend she can't understand me over my deep African accent. I've never been to Africa a day in my life and was born in the USA. Oh my god, even more blatant racism. I ignore her and go through all the rules and boring stuff. Once everyone is in game, I keep reminding everyone no running. We have a multiple story arena for laser tag, and I've seen people run and fall down a flight of stairs because they weren't looking. Now, I'm not an idiot, it's a play arena, so I know there's going to be some running. I'll only penalise someone if they're running too fast. And what a surprise, I penalised the entitled parent and her entitled kid multiple times for running too fast. Finally, EK runs so fast he hits a wall so hard it falls off. Granted, it was only held up by flimsy nails, but still, I pause the game and tell him to leave with no refund. The entitled parent comes flying at me, screaming how dare I pause the game and tell her son to leave. What she forgets is when I'm referee, my word is literally law when the game is being played. I tell her if she keeps arguing, I'll kick her out too. The entitled parent spits in my mother frickin' face, and I get so annoyed and kick both her and her entitled kid out. Well, good for you. I apologise to everyone and finish the game. I feel so bad for the birthday party that I give them another free game to play. The entitled parent comes stomping over while I'm sitting there with no guests. She has my manager in tow. She begins screaming at me for kicking her out of the game. My manager asks what happened and I tell her. The entitled parent doesn't even try to deny it. Okay, so just so I understand, the entitled parent went through all the trouble of getting the manager over, but then doesn't even deny that her and her kid was sprinting the entire game. Of course, the manager picks up her walkie-talkie and calls for security. The entitled parent turns to me and grins. You're gonna get it now, N-word. Oh my god. My manager is furious right now, and once security comes, she flips the F out. She tells the entitled parent that she is never ever allowed back into this place, and that if she is caught near this place again, she will call the police. But the entitled parent, who is clearly one of the most incredibly stupid people I have ever met, retaliates by calling the police themselves. At this point, the manager gives me the rest of the day off. I left just as the cops were pulling up. I'm home now and won't hear the rest of the story until the time I go into work. I'll update when I hear what happened. Well, I bet you guys are all dying to know what happened, but unfortunately... Oh wait, hang on, what's this? There is an update, here we go. So, what happened after I left work is only what my co-workers and friends told me what happened. A few of the details might be missed since I wasn't there, but I'll try to explain it how they told me. Apparently, once the cops came in, she completely changed her demeanor, well why doesn't that surprise me, and began speaking to them politely like she was a respectful citizen. Here's where it gets a bit foggy, because the officers went with my manager and the entitled parent into the security office to look at the cameras. But what I know for sure is she came out the back office as mad as one of those Lucifer wasps. She screamed, yelled and cried. She was rolling around on the floor in what looked like a failed dance move. My friend, who recently got off the clock, watched the whole thing and recorded it. The entitled parent was dragged to her feet by the officers, while her group of manager haircut Karens and their demon spawns watched far, far away. Apparently, she was charged with the crimes of trespassing and disturbing the peace. After hearing that, I guess she figured out no point in trying to be reasonable now. Wait, why hasn't she been charged with being an absolute racist bigot? Oh, here we go. So she started screaming how the big black boy should be arrested for molesting her child. Now, the officers explained to her that during the viewing of the security footage, they saw me do nothing illegal. But here's the part I like, she could also be charged with child neglect for leaving her child alone while she got on the ride. But since I was there to watch over him, in a way she could narrowly avoid that crime. She insisted that her son was traumatized and that he'll never be the same again, and that this will teach her to trust filthy blacks. What the heck? Notice how she stopped from using a racial slur because an officer was there. They put her in handcuffs and dragged her away. My friend made sure to tell me especially that the entitled kid looked at his mum being dragged away, waved and went back to his game. Oh, this is definitely one of those where the entitled kid has learnt everything from his horrible mother. I was called down to the police station to give a statement, and they asked if I wanted to press charges. I talked with my foster parents and my uncle, who's a lawyer, and decided not to for two main reasons. Firstly, court cases cost a lot of money, and it would be a hassle to run back and forth for the trial in civil court. And secondly, I personally felt bad for the kid. Yeah, I kinda do as well. Racism isn't born with you, it's learned. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So I honestly didn't want this kid to grow up thinking his mum had to pay or be in prison basically off of the word of me, which might continue the cycle of hatred and racism. Well, that's actually very sensible thinking, good job. I know those reasons don't seem like much, but I talked it over with my family and we decided it was the best plan of action. One last point I want to make before I end this long story. Racism is never okay. Thousands of people have died in history over racism and stuff. I do not tolerate racism or bigotry, it's just not okay. Well, I can certainly vouch for that. As some of you may know, my degree at university was in history, and the amount of disgusting racism and bigotry over the years is just abhorrent. And one last thing to say, F you, Karen. Well, there we go. That is the end of this incredibly detailed story. I like this one a lot. If you enjoyed it, click on the video on screen right now for some more, and also check out this crazy fan art. Isn't it amazing? Send me your pictures on Twitter or Discord to have a chance to be featured in the next video.